Therapy doesn't work because it approaches the subject of change backwards.
In this episode, we're going to interview Julie Nise, who's helped thousands of people have breakthroughs in their business, in sales, in their personal relationships, whether it's their marriage, parenting, weight loss, smoking, and so much more. She's even done work with people like Dr. Phil. So let's check out what she has to say.
There's actually absolutely nothing that's happened to anybody in the past, no matter how long or how bad it might have been, that necessarily has anything to do with what they choose to do next. If you're not doing or saying something that has to do with an outcome that you want to create, a goal that you have, it is either irrelevant or dangerous.
So Julie, thanks for coming to chat with me
Thank
today.
you for having me.
Yeah. It's funny how we met because I had landed on this subject matter of NLP and I was trying to understand it because there's all this stuff on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah, lots.
Some are not that good and you're like, maybe I don't want to learn more about this. But I worked with a guy for 4 days doing some hypnosis. And then he partnered with somebody who used to work for Tony Robbins, and they were talking about this NLP thing. And when I was working with this guy, Chase Hughes, it made a lot of sense, but I still really couldn't connect the dots. I'm still trying to, figure out in my head. So I was up here at the office on a Saturday, and I'm like, I really need to find somebody that I can work with because that's how my brain works. Like, I want to be with someone and kind of understand and be able
learn
to
hands-on.
Learn hands-on. There you go. So I type in NLP Pensacola.
And there I am.
Yeah. So I land on this website that's talking about weight loss and smoking. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like this makes sense, but I don't fit this category. I dig a little deeper and I find YouTube and I find you on YouTube.
There I am.
On Dr. Phil's show. And I'm like, this is it.
So I guess that was good marketing.
This, I found it. It was like a light bulb. And so I went to Facebook and sent you a message.
Yeah, I remember that part.
And I don't think you regularly check it. So it was a couple days.
That would be true. No, that used to be true.
Okay.
It was several days, yes.
So
it could have been several weeks.
Like, here's my cell. Call me.
Right.
So I called you. We had a conversation. Then we met for lunch. And
it was sushi. It was very good, I remember.
It was. And from there, we had a whole workshop here at my office.
Yes, we did.
And it was 4 days. But it didn't feel like 4 days to me. And every single person who came, there was about 10 of us, said it was the best thing that they ever went to. So we have all these phrases now, like we'll join even our team with Angel, we'll join huddles and we're like, what would Julie do? WWJD. we changed it. What would Julie do? Or we'll be like, channel your inner Julie.
Your inner Julie.
But it was super impactful. And so how did you get into this?
Actually, it was, I'll try to make a long story short.
Yeah.
I was a relatively new therapist. I had a midlife career change. I was doing actually high-tech medical device sales for a long time. Some very nice companies. I was flying 100,000 miles a year in the air, that sort of thing. Kind of having a ball with that, but that kind of had a shelf life. And I looked forward and didn't see a lot of opportunities out there. So I thought, well, I think I'll do something else. So I decided I was going to be 40 one day anyway. I might as well be 40 with a master's degree. So I went and got a master's degree. And my choice was either an MBA, and I don't think I could tolerate one more second of accounting.
You and me both.
So it was psychology. It had been my second major, actually, in college. So just kind of went through the motions with that. Didn't do a lot of due diligence, just thought it was a good idea and went with it. Ended up getting my master's in clinical psychology and thought, okay, well, great, I'll be a therapist, not really realizing they don't make a lot of money. And I already had been pre-warned that they don't really help people. So I found myself one day, it was kind of a funny story. So I went out, I'm kind of ambitious. So I went out and I rented this gorgeous office. I mean, it was 3 or 4 suites, and I hired a bunch of lazy therapists to work with me, and I would teach them how to market because they don't know anything about marketing. And, build their practice along with mine, and I'd take a cut and it'll all be wonderful and just a beautiful suite. they didn't do poop. And I remember sitting in my my reception area one day, and I got on every insurance panel known to man, right? Because that's what we're supposed to be, what you do. I since don't take any insurance, but I finally get my first insurance check. I'm so excited. Oh, it's from Magellan. Oh my gosh, my first insurance. I open it. It was $25.
Oof.
And that was my epiphany. I thought, I may not have calculated this quite right because that would pay for 30 seconds worth of this office. One day in the mail, I got a little flyer that talked about helping people stop smoking with hypnosis. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. Plus, it also suggested you could make a lot of money doing that. And that was also very interesting at the time. So I went for this training and got, certified. Turns out not a big deal in hypnosis, but I got certified, started doing hypnosis for smoking. Then I found Scott, my mentor, the one that you're working with as well. And then my world changed completely because he did hypnosis for everything. He taught me NLP and all this other wonderful stuff. And so my world just exploded with ability to help people. And that was my real driving force.
So you had your own clinic.
I did. I had, actually I've had two very large hypnosis clinics. I sold both of them. And I also obviously had this, I've sort of limped along with doing marriage counseling, although I really call it relationship training because I don't do therapy traditionally at all, in any way. But that sort of limped along until I sold the second hypnosis practice because I was doing kind of both simultaneously, the training more or less on the side. And so now the relationship training has become the central focus because I'm not going to compete. So there you go.
A lot of people think hypnosis is done like in Vegas or a show.
It is.
Or you're putting somebody under.
You do.
Okay. So
in a manner of speaking, yes.
Walk me through practically in most cases, how does hypnosis typically go, especially if you were just working with me? Would I still be aware of what I was doing? Would I be in a deep sleep? What's it like? Well,
hypnosis is not sleep, first of all. So I guess if we're talking about you, the first thing is don't look into my eyes. No, just kidding. So it's not sleep. And there are a lot of common myths with hypnosis. Basically, there are 4 situations that you can't hypnotize somebody. One is if they are drunk or high because they can't pay attention long enough to focus. 2 is if they have an IQ less than maybe about 90 because they're not capable of taking that in. So we're ticking them off here. Luke, just hang on. 3 is if they are truly clinically crazy,
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, can't do that. 4th one's the most common one. And that's if they don't want to be hypnotized. That's a huge thing. So, for example, I would have clients all the time coming in saying, I really need to stop smoking. I'd have to say, well, that's great. You should, but do you want to? Because I can't make you do anything you don't want to do. Hypnosis never makes you do anything you don't want to do. It will only support the decision that you make. So if it's something you actually want to do and you're willing to be guided and taught how to sort of enter an altered state of consciousness or relaxation, which is super fun and very easy, then it's kind of effortless, which is why it has such a high success rate.
And what type of state is that? Is that like a theta state?
Right before you actually fall asleep or right after you just wake up, if you're not in a rush, you're kind of in that same similar state. It's nice and relaxed and comfortable and slow and peaceful. And you're aware. You're definitely aware of everything going on.
Could it be maybe like watching a great movie where you're...
Well, hypnosis actually happens a lot of times, like for sure in a movie. Also, another example of how we've all been hypnotized is when you're driving along on kind of a boring drive, right? And you start daydreaming, which means you've accessed your unconscious mind and your imagination. And pretty soon you're like 10 miles down the road. Whoa, what happened here?
What happened?
You literally don't remember it. Now, you were driving, you were perfectly safe. Your unconscious mind is not going to let you, veer off the road or something. But you actually were in a trance. And that is the best way to describe it. It is a trance of varying depths, depending on... Actually, the depth of hypnosis trance is directly related to the need that you have to relax. So it's always a little bit different with everybody, but that's the best way to describe it.
If you see a show in Vegas and the guy hypnotizes somebody and they get up and bark like a dog or whatever.
Or have a rubber nose or something like that.
They were open to that, or
Yes, because so the thing is, in Vegas, you will never ever see the hypnotist say, you and you and you, come here. That doesn't happen. He describes, oh, this is going to be hypnosis. It's so fun. You can come on stage. You can be, superstar. So most of the time, people in Vegas are there having a good time. They maybe have had a couple cocktails, so they think it's a great idea. So if you see somebody going, pick me, okay, you know that they want this experience.
Right.
But the problem is, a lot of times people will get on stage and have second thoughts. So he'll usually get more than he needs. So they may start with like
This
a
is
dozen.
what I saw.
Right? Get
Yep.
a dozen people up there. And so he begins the induction, and he's watching he or she is watching very carefully, that they're following directions. And pretty soon you'll see him lean over and go, you did really great. Thank you very much. You can go back to your seat now. Because he's seen somebody with deer in the headlights going, oh no, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So they have gone to not wanting to be hypnotized.
And so there's like 2 or 4 who will,
A
and
few
then he'll
that
do
they
a
has to
show.
get rid of, and the rest of them are there to have a ball, and they know they're going to act silly and goofy. They want to act silly and goofy. They want to be the center of attention, and they will be.
And that's what I thought hypnosis was strictly for kind of a long time. And obviously, you see movies or settings, but it's like, how does that actually work? And it was just like you were describing, more so in a trance when I was
Right.
doing it with Chase, and still conscious, leading me through things, very relaxed, but really getting me focused and seeing myself do things.
Accessing your imagination, that's the cool thing. What traditional therapy doesn't understand, and most people really need to know, is the way that human beings change is through your imagination. It's not through logic. That's for damn sure. So really, hypnosis accesses the 2 most powerful parts of your brain to make changes happen, and that's your unconscious mind and your imagination. It's like a superhero combo.
Do you think with kids, and typically kids are a lot more creative, they don't have the limits,
The filters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk.
Kids are super easy to hypnotize, and they're always great subjects because their imaginations are crazy good.
Yeah, it's so cool. It makes me think about my daughter because she's just running wild with stuff. And it's sad that as people get older, their creativity kind of dies because they're told to fit in this box.
Right.
But the people who can stay creative, the possibilities are really endless in terms of where they can go or what they can do.
Creativity creates options. Creativity creates options.
What's because I've heard you talk a lot about therapists and how it doesn't really work. Why doesn't therapy work?
Do we have the guard at the door?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's locked, padded.
Okay. This is my opinion, but therapy doesn't work because it approaches the subject of change backwards. Okay. First of all, therapy comes from an intellectual standpoint. They want to label things. They want to analyze things. They want to describe things. And the labeling part I particularly don't like, but they want to analyze. So what is analyzing? It's looking backwards at what's already happened, not looking forward to what you want to create. That's problem 1. Because there's actually absolutely nothing that's happened to anybody in the past, no matter how long or how bad it might have been, that necessarily has anything to do with what they choose to do next. Right? So no focus is put on what you want to do next. That just seems very odd to me. The other thing about therapy is that they seem to think that understanding seems to be the thing they're shooting for. It seems to be the goal they're after. Well, I can understand very well I have a broken leg, but that doesn't help me fix it. Right? I can understand clearly that my car is making a really weird noise and smoke is coming out of it, but that doesn't tell me how to fix it. So unless you take in my opinion, a more practical approach and look at what are the skills you have, what skills do you need to accomplish the goals and objectives you have. Everything should start with an objective or an outcome. Everything is about outcome. If you're not doing or saying something that has to do with an outcome that you want to create, a goal that you have, it is either irrelevant or dangerous. And that everything's in that bucket. So best case scenario is you create an outcome that you want in the future and then reverse engineer it to where you are now and then figure out what steps you have to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy is focused on feelings, feelings, which is, again, in my opinion, the wrong way to approach things. I don't really give a flip what you feel. What I care about is what you want to do or have or be. Feelings are never as important as your goals.
Mm-hmm.
They don't believe that. So they actually waste, in my view, an awful lot of time and an awful lot of opportunities focused on the wrong thing.
How do you take someone, and maybe it's not possible with everybody. First, they have to want help. But let's say somebody at a therapist maybe does want help and they think, well, this is what I should do. But they're stuck on the hamster wheel because it's all about the past, and now they're getting sympathy, and maybe they're
Fire their therapist.
Maybe they're getting labeled. How does that person practically change their behavior? Obviously, we know they need a target. They need an outcome.
But they're not going to be taught that in therapy.
But I know so many people who may say they want this outcome, but then they kind of go the therapy route and they keep staying focused on the past.
But what is their other choice? Most people have reached the end of what they know to do what they want to do. Most people have sort of tried everything.
Mm-hmm.
We all get to the end of what we know on every subject at some point. So you should be able to go to somebody seen as an expert or help. And that would, for most people, their view of that would be therapy. Unfortunately, once they get there, they're just going to analyze the crap out of their childhood and compare everything wrong now with something that happened when they were 6.
Mm-hmm.
And really, nobody gets through childhood unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of how bad it is.
Right.
Okay. But it doesn't really matter what happened in your childhood. I know therapists are throwing up in their mouth all over. It doesn't matter what happened in your childhood. Your job is to get over it, move past it, forgive it. That's the big thing. Forgive it and let go of it so you can move forward into your future, because you're not living your childhood now.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes very simple from this context. Everything that's happened to you in life is supposed to have happened that way. This is a faith-based approach, so it's not my personal idea. But God doesn't make mistakes, so everything that's happened is the way it's supposed to have been, and it was at the right and perfect time for your soul to learn the lessons it was supposed to learn. Your job now, regardless of what you've gone through, is to take those positive learnings forward in a way that will help you in the future. It's learning, it's wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem is most people take the negative emotions they had with the past experiences right along with the learnings. And if you take the negative emotions along with the learnings, it ruins the learnings. So they're never able actually to figure it out and make sense of it and have that be useful at some way.
And people who can relate with this, I can certainly relate. I had a family member who stayed focused on the past. She had a tough childhood, divorced several times. What happened is she ended up getting a lot of sympathy from family members.
Yeah.
And they would help financially, place to stay, whatever. But she never changed.
Right.
And it never did any good.
Well, the funny thing about sympathy is sympathy for a lot of people is like crack cocaine. And it's never a good thing. Empathy is wonderful. Empathy is fabulous, and you should always have a lot of empathy from everybody. But sympathy, you should avoid like the plague. The problem with getting sympathy is it gives the person who's getting the sympathy the power to stay exactly where they are. And if they like getting sympathy, it's sort of like a self-licking ice cream cone. It's just, I can't get better because then I wouldn't get all this sympathy and attention, So that would be a problem. And realistically, the really insidious thing about getting sympathy is it takes your responsibility away. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to fix it if you're getting sympathy because everybody feels sorry for you. Nobody says, get over it and just do it. Get out of that situation. They say, oh, poor baby, I know that's so hard out. So bad for you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you can stay here with me.
You can stay on my couch. Yes,
and
I'll give you another $20. Yeah, no.
I saw this happen with a lot of my friends. I think in my generation, there were more people who are still living with their parents.
Oh, yeah.
Than ever before. And luckily, this was not me. I'm not saying my childhood was perfect. It wasn't. But I did not get things from my parents other than the meals that I needed, safety, shelter, and if I wanted anything else, even a game console, well, you got to go out and earn, money to
Wow.
pay for it. We're not going to buy you one. You know, at the time I didn't like it because
Yeah, right.
all my friends are like,
Rotten dad.
yeah. They got the new thing, you know, Nintendo 64, PlayStation. Then we got into cars and I didn't get a car. I had to drive the family hand-me-down that all the kids had to drive until I could buy a car.
What was your first car you bought?
It was the first car I bought with own money.
Yes.
Was a 2-door Honda Accord. I think it was like a 2006 or something.
Wow.
I thought it was awesome.
I know.
And yeah, it was blue.
My first car was a 55 Chevy wagon, beat up piece of shit. I think I paid $200 for. But I was so proud of that because I was only 16 and it was my car.
Well, speaking of
so
wagons,
exciting.
That's what I drove before.
Oh.
The car I was given was a Pontiac station wagon,
Oh,
1987.
There you
The
go.
window wouldn't roll down. There was no AC. Had a terrible exhaust
And
leak.
you loved it. Just the fact you could drive.
I hated it.
Well, you loved
I
yours
was so
that you
embarrassed.
bought. Yeah.
I would park down the block from
Uh-oh.
places. Yeah, it was terrible. Now I don't really care, but I've got a beat up truck in the parking lot today. But I fast forward to today. Many of those friends haven't done anything. Some of them still need their parents, and they were really coddled. You know,
It's a good word.
And so to go to responsibility, they were always bailed out. They never had to take responsibility, and it's kind of like the eagle who kicks the baby out of the nest.
Mm-hmm.
You're falling down the cliff or out of the tree. If you don't spread your wings and fly, you're dead. And I think it was Carnegie or one of those guys said, the greatest gift you can give your kids is poverty. Now, I'm not sure I totally agree, but if you're given poverty versus everything,
Oh,
then
pick poverty. Pick poverty every time.
there you go.
Another way to look at it, too, is, you know, maturity, which is what you're talking about your friends don't have. We define as the ability to manage frustration or not getting your way without acting out. Now, the way you're supposed to learn maturity is in your childhood because your parents tell you no. But parents today are, you know, all up in their feelings and, you know, don't want to be mean to the kid and all that. We see that on TV every day. We've reached the point where we have a generation of completely incompetent, tall children because they weren't taught maturity. Maturity means saying no. Now, poverty is kind of a strong word, but I would certainly tend toward poverty rather than abundance when I'm raising a kid. And I absolutely say no is the best thing you can say most of the time because you're looking for ways that they're demonstrating immaturity or acting out, pitching a fit because they don't like what's going on, and then you get a chance to correct it.
All right. Well, NLP. Let's talk about NLP.
All right.
What is NLP? Obviously, it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. What
Right.
does that mean?
Well, it means it uses your brain. That's a neuro part. Linguistics, talking, and programming may not have been the perfect word, but it's, you know, training. So NLP is basically quite a brilliant set of techniques, concepts, ideas that people can use to make changes, make their life better in a nutshell. Tony Robbins is probably the most famous one doing that. He did, you know, fairly good job.
Kind of.
kind of, sort of. It's wonderful because it's something anyone can do. It doesn't require any special training or certification or, you know, any big deals. You don't have to be a college-educated person to do it. And the thing is, it just smokes anything else in terms of making changes. I've often said I would rather take a brand new NLP student and put them in a room with a couple that's really having a trouble, like in their marriage, or somebody who's really struggling with something. I would have way more confidence in that than I would a 20-year veteran therapist in that same room. If they only had one session, I'd put my money on the new NLP student every time.
Is that because they'd be outcome focused?
That, and they'd actually be doing things. The therapist, whether it's one session or 3 months or 6 months worth, would be talking about, well, tell me about your childhood and all the things you didn't like. That's not going to fix their problem. The
You
NLP
can't go
student,
back and fix it.
the NLP student's going to be first starts off with, well, what do you want? What's your goal? What do you want to change?
Tony Robbins tells a story where a lady had been working with a therapist on a phobia of snakes. I think it was 20 years. I may be misspeaking. It was like 10
No, it's
or 20
probably
years.
true.
And he was doing a seminar. He worked with Jim Rohn, and then he went out and started doing his own seminars. And I guess he was exploring and learning NLP and testing it. Somehow he was publicizing it. Maybe it was a radio show, and this lady called in, and he said, "I can fix you, or I can fix your phobia." And she's like, "Well, how long will it take?" He's like, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And she, of course she had to show up. She didn't believe it.
Right.
Then the therapist showed up, and,
Really?
he told Tony, "There's no way you're going to do this, and what you're saying is dangerous," or whatever. So he basically got her into a state of hypnosis and walked her through some type of framework, and then brought out a snake and dropped it in front of her, and she was fine.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I got introduced to watching Tony tell this story.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But, maybe a lot of people, maybe there's people in sales watching or marketing watching. What are some of the key things at a basic level that maybe they're already doing that are a part of NLP?
Well, matching and pacing would come to mind. If they're in sales and marketing, they're dealing with clients and customers. In order to be good with that, you do have to do one of the things, the key points of NLP, which is matching and pacing and developing rapport. Rapport, as we learned, is an acronym, really. Really, all people prefer others resembling themselves. So the more you can sort of get into the mood or the energy or the patterns or the breathing or the whatever body movements of somebody you're speaking with, the more quickly you gain rapport, and that usually leads to better results in the sales department.
Mm-hmm. I think we've cut our sales presentation in half, Harrison and myself.
Really? Oh, how cool.
From working with you and then Scott.
Excellent.
Because we have the information close.
Right.
Because we're dealing with orthodontist and dentist, and they really like
They love that information close.
What we found is if we just focus on getting in rapport with the person, however long that may take, it may take 30 seconds. It may take 10 minutes because some people are really guarded. It's like yes or no, and you have to somehow open them up. One of the things that I did is I came up with a creative questionnaire before they get on a call with me.
Oh, interesting. What is it?
I ask them their favorite watch brand, the type of car they own. And people answer in more detail those questions than the questions about their business.
Of course they do.
This tells me a lot about them. And then it's fun because people are very curious. So they'll
Why
come
did you ask me that? Why did you
ask
need
me
to know
about
that?
my watch? This one guy had a Garmin something. And I'm like, well, I looked up the watch, and you're probably an athlete. You probably like to exercise. You probably like to track your data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you know?
Yeah, it's like a $100 watch. And then you've got the people who pick the Cartier. And then he asked me, well, Luke, you're priced a little higher than your competition.
Says the guy with the Cartier watch.
What's the difference between you and this competitor? And I said, there's nothing wrong with the competitor, but the competitor's kind of like a Tissot or maybe even a Timex, and we're like your Cartier. And he said,
I love it.
Oh, that makes sense.
I love it. Yeah, of course it does.
These kind of like bridges, especially when you know a little bit about the person.
Huge. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So we've just focused on going back to the basics of, yes, getting in rapport. Do we think that the person likes us? Are we connecting with them? Can we establish some trust? And then we'll go through some things like salting the cut, proving it, penalty for not responding, things like that. But I find, and we even found this with ourselves, we would just get right into sales and these boring questions to get info. And then we were info dumping on the close, and it worked, but
not
we
as
could
well.
have, not as well.
Well, and isn't it interesting if you really look at the process, and you did, I'm sure very thoroughly, how interesting it is, how much time and conversation was irrelevant.
Well, another thing is, through NLP, I started to look at, is it mind maps or memory mind maps? And I heard it explained like this from somebody. Imagine if you were just trying to drive 2 hours from here, so like Dothan, Alabama, and you needed a map. Let's pretend before smartphones. And I gave you a map for the whole globe. And, it's the size of your car if you unfolded it.
That'd be a little hard.
Okay, that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we went to the 2 hour map.
Yes.
Because, like you're saying, if it's irrelevant, well, if this person's hearing it for the first time and they don't know half of what we're talking about, we don't always have their full attention maybe over 2 hours of calls.
Right.
They're only going to remember so much.
That's right.
This is also when they say, I need to talk to my business partner. I need to talk to my wife. I said, well, it might be best if you were to actually get your wife on a call with us, because it's kind of like if you taught me orthodontics, and then I went and told the patient, wouldn't it be best if it came from you because you're the expert? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess
in fact, I don't even know how I would tell her about the software or this part.
No kidding.
And so that's been helpful too, is let's just get everybody on the call, but keeping it simple, shortening things, thinking about this mind map of what are they actually going to retain? What are the main things that I want them to walk away with and go, I remember this and it was different.
One of the cool things about NLP is that it gives you such a sense of control. You're not just wandering around with whatever you're thinking at the moment, which is what a lot of salespeople do kind of off the cuff. And this is a very specific set of concepts and ways to talk to people and ways to develop rapport, ways to present a sale, ways to close a sale. It's just, and it's really effortless. It's so conversational, so easy to do in conversation, but you're very focused and it makes you much more externally aware. That's the other fun thing about NLP. Most people including salespeople, are way too much in their head. Way too much in their head. And there is no reality in there, Reality is out here in front of us. And NLP gives you a way of taking in reality and processing it and controlling it and directing it that I think is really fun for everybody's best interest.
You had taught us something in sales. It was getting the person into a series of yeses.
Yes set.
Yes set. Could you maybe walk me through that?
Sure. So did you find some things interesting in our talk today?
Yes.
Yeah. And were there some things that maybe specifically you could use in the future?
Yes.
And would you like some more of those things?
Yeah.
Good. Well, it's going to be $59.95. Would you like to pay with cash or check?
It's very simple.
It's very simple. Yeah. Yes set is just you ask questions that you pretty well know would be a yes answer. And the yes set sort of suggests that psychologically then they're set up for the yes close.
Practically in a sales relationship, I guess you would have to be doing this maybe throughout or going back to pieces of information that maybe you picked up on and you're kind of working that into the close.
Yes, but I think it's probably more relevant to be paying attention to the matching and pacing piece. Okay. So you'll be able to tell when you break rapport because you're not going to be in sync with breath rate, body movement, pitch and tone of voice, all that sort of stuff. So paying attention, if you're really in rapport with somebody and you shift, they are likely to shift as well. Okay. So if you're testing that throughout the conversation and you're shifting and they're staying rigid, you've got a problem. There's something going on there.
Yeah.
Even if it's something as simple and so common as just nodding, it's very common to have people nod when you're talking to them. It suggests a level of rapport. Well, if you're talking along, making a great point and they're just sitting there, okay, again, you've got probably a little problem.
How do you, so somebody who's maybe on a sales call, maybe it's Zoom, this happened to me the other day. There was a little bit of a language barrier and I've
just gone through that. It's so fun.
I couldn't get the guy to really give me anything for about 10 minutes. And it was like, yep, okay, that's it. And I'm like, man, how do I?
Were you asking yes and no questions instead of open-ended?
I was asking questions open-ended where he would have to. Now I finally was able to kind of break that down. I can't remember how I did it. I went back to more, your area. I've been there. I saw this on your website and kind of got that to come down, but just really guarded to the point where it was getting weird. And I've faced that before in time, and maybe people are thinking about this now. Well, I couldn't get in rapport in this instance. Maybe if you're not matching, pacing, getting in rapport, what's a way to get yourself to settle in and get the person in sync with you?
Well, I think it's very important to be in external awareness, first of all, not in your head. And of course, if we notice somebody's not in rapport and it's not sort of going right or it's a little bit longer getting there, then you can get tense and maybe a little anxious, and that kind of spoils your focus because you're going to be more internal. Especially with people with a language barrier, there might be some built-in hesitations that wouldn't be there with a natural speaker, right? But anybody who's that hesitant, what's everybody's favorite subject? Themselves. So whenever you have a rapport problem, that's the first place you go.
So it's also interesting because of the VAC model, visual,
auditory, kinesthetic.
I said, I'm going to give this person a little bit more attention through email because maybe since there was a language barrier and it didn't really feel like we got fully in rapport, I'm going to send them 2 emails and I'm going to spread them out this way. He set himself up because he emailed me and asked me a question. So I was able to answer his question, but then I had an email saved and I said, hey, I was thinking about our talk because there wasn't much pain at all with what he was going through, but there was. He just wasn't identifying it. Or
wasn't admitting it.
He wasn't admitting it.
Okay.
And so he had labeled this one thing as his pain that shouldn't have been. And so I just painted that picture for him. Based on our talk, I actually think this is the thing that you should be concerned about. And this is why you should work with us, not for this other reason. If it's this other reason,
interesting,
I don't even think it would be worth it. And then he wrote me back this novel of how he agreed with me. He's taken other
so you hit
calls
it right on the head.
With competitors, but we're actually much more of a fit. And so he's getting back from vacation and wants to move forward with us.
Fabulous.
So maybe if somebody's not getting through in one way, they can try communicating it in a different way. But if you use the VAC model, you can kind of do that live with somebody.
Yeah, and so you probably accurately saw that he was more visual oriented with the emails better than connecting and talking, which is common with people in a different language. But yeah, that sounds like a great outcome.
Yeah,
how fun.
It was fun.
And he probably sold himself.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And that's the
best kind to have.
Yeah. So you got into NLP through Scott McFall. How did that kind of transpire? Just connecting with Scott?
Well, I connected with him and still remember I attended one of his big trainings. This is 19 years ago. And the first morning, the first few hours of that training, I was sitting in the front row and he keeps teasing me because I'm a teacher suck up. Yeah, it's not true. So I didn't have my glasses on. And I wanted to be able to see what was on the board. So he begins ridiculing mercilessly therapists, which is what I was, a brand new baby therapist at that point. I mean, ridiculing. And I remember sitting there going, that's really weird. I wonder why he's saying all that. I don't get it. And I found out later, of course, it was all a setup. Long story short, I was so impressed. I signed up that training for him to be my mentor because I accurately recognized I did not have the skill set to do this hypnosis thing, in a way that it could be done. If I patterned what I was doing after his model, I would be wildly successful, and I was. So he has been my mentor since.
And how'd you start using NLP after that? Like, because you had a clinic, right?
Well, but see, with whether you're doing counseling, and I now really say it's training, but counseling, no matter what you're doing in your job, you've already done it. You can do it working at the gas station. It doesn't matter. Everybody can do it. If you see somebody that wants to make a change or wants to have some kind of breakthrough or wants to improve something, they're a candidate.
Who kind of stumbled upon this or formalized it?
Bandler and Grindler.
Okay.
Originally, yeah, a group of people back in the mid-'70s.
And one of them was like ex-military or CIA?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
And NLP, interestingly, has been taught. I mean, the CIA uses it and knows about it. All our military does too. It's very powerful technology, actually. When you can get people to change their perception, change their view, change their attitude, change their feeling about something. I know there's a feeling word. I hate to bring that up. But like you said, in 20 minutes, that's pretty amazing when you think about it. The model I came from in therapy was, this could take, months, if not years. Well, bullshit. No, it doesn't have to take that long, and it shouldn't. And it just breaks my heart to hear from people who say, well, I've been in therapy for the last 5 years and I'm still working on this. I'm like, oh, for the love of God, please.
Have you seen changes happen instantly?
All the time. NLP, this may be exaggerating a little bit, but it sure seems like it. NLP is like creating miracles every day.
Wow.
You all are using it in a sales and business capacity, which is fabulous and it's wonderful, and I know you've done very well with it. But if you're in the helping people who are trying to heal or make their lives better, or they have a legitimate problem personally or parenting in their relationship, whatever it might be, that's where it kind of gets to feel like a miracle. And that's pretty fun.
I heard a presidential candidate, not one of the main ones.
Oh, okay, good.
So RFK Jr.
Oh, okay.
And he said, I could start a fight almost anywhere by talking about climate change.
Oh, absolutely.
If I just
you could
bring up climate change, a brawl will ensue.
Yep. There's several topics like that, actually.
So he said, if I come at it as, well, everybody wants clean water, don't we?
Right.
And approach it from that angle, then you can actually get somewhere. And I thought of, well, that's just getting on common ground with someone. Right. And so we're getting into congruence and agreeance together.
Which is another form of rapport.
Right.
So we might be wildly opposed on, how to get there, but there's certain things, no matter what the disagreement is, you can always find something you agree on.
So the person who really wants to help someone, whether it's in sales, business, or
personally
with
kids or, whatever.
Yeah. Do they have to, in order to actually help and connect with the person, do they have to give up what they think they know to meet that person where they are?
That would be best. If you do this long enough, you can develop a skill. I think it's a skill. It's a tremendous advantage to be completely oblivious to yourself. Most of the time because I'm in a groove at this point, I've been doing this for a long time. So most of the time when I'm in working with somebody, it's like I am literally oblivious to me. I don't have an awareness. Sometimes I have to go, wait a minute, I really have to pee. I just, because I'm just not aware of it. So being able to completely step outside yourself, you and your feelings and your thoughts and your biases and your attitudes contaminate what you're trying to do. Now, you can use some of them to sync up with somebody, and that's great. But they should be like, your whip outs. Oh, we like dogs? Okay, let's talk about dogs. But I'm not doing it because I need some sort of validation or I need to have an emotional experience talking about dogs. I'm doing it because I'm creating rapport with you so I can then have more leverage on you.
So if you're fighting to be right,
oh God, worst thing in the world.
You're never gonna help that person.
I was so good at being right, Luke. I
was
have
better.
to admit this. I was wicked good at being right. Damn, I was good. Until I found out how really bad it is.
Yeah.
And then you just have to go, wow, I don't want to do that anymore. That's really not okay.
Could you believe that I was one of the least flexible people ever? Could you believe that?
A long time ago, not now.
And I learned the hard way in many ways where part of, phases of my life, I would have to go through things and I was hell-bent, I'm right. I'm going to be the one to do it, or, me.
Well, was that determination or being right?
Well, it was a little bit of both. And also I ended up with massive anxiety because when you always want to be right, you can't just let anything go.
That's right.
And so finally I got to a point where I could just be free. Now, obviously, I'm not perfect at this.
Really?
Could you, also believe that? Oh my God,
I'm so shocked.
But, even in very tense situations, I start to think, well, what's the worst thing that could actually happen here? Maybe we lose a client. Maybe somebody doesn't like me.
But nobody dies.
Nobody dies. I'm still going to be able to go home at 5 or 6 p.m. and see my kids or, X, Y, and Z. And so not that I don't care.
Right.
It's just I don't have to win. I don't have to.
Well, there's a tremendous freedom in that.
Yeah.
Tremendous freedom. Being right is a rigid trap, it turns out. And trying to prove you're competent or smart, it never ends. So if you dispense with that and you don't have to be smart, you don't have to be right, you don't have to be competent, you will be because you are naturally, but you're not proving it anymore. It doesn't matter. One of the most powerful things we can all learn is everybody's ordinary. You're not special. You're not special. You're ordinary. And sometimes ordinary people can do extraordinary things. But you're at the end of the day ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And once you wrap your head around that, it just takes pressure off like crazy.
Yeah. I used to have a neighbor, and he somewhat became a bit of a mentor. He's dead now. He died at 90. He was hilarious. You would have loved him. His name was Omar. And he used to say all the time, don't take yourself so seriously.
Good advice.
I did learn a ton from him because he would just have fun and laugh and cut up. At the same time, he could shift gears, and he knew a lot. He had a lot of wisdom. But there's something very forgiving in just not taking yourself too seriously.
And flexible.
And being flexible.
Flexibility in life is key.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important.
Yeah, I used to think, well, I can help this person. I'm going to tell them, And it's like, well, they already...
I've been there.
They already know what to do in most cases.
People do. Most people absolutely do.
So that's not going to work.
Mm-mm.
And I've started to realize that more change happens when they can maybe see the example you're setting or the environment that you're in. Mm-hmm. And it starts to rub off on them, because it's kind of like show me your friends and show me your future. The more that I'm around them, maybe it's team members, and they start to pick up on certain things and it resonates with them. It's kind of like this slow gravitational pull.
Mm-hmm.
And the change happens way faster than if I were to let's talk.
Force it down their throat. Yeah,
here's
exactly.
what you need to do.
Because everybody wants to feel smart at some level, So if you need to explain something to someone or give them this fabulous piece of information, it's better to just sort of set it down and let them sniff around and get some, rather than, here, have a bite. Just works better. Works that way with dogs too.
Yeah, smash the pie in their face. Maybe you could give an example of a framework with me, because by the way, I bought this book. It's like this thick.
Uh-oh.
It's like 350 NLP techniques. Oh, I was going.
That isn't overkill, is it?
I have all these tabs throughout the whole book. I like that one. I like this one too.
Oh my God.
You know me. So I've got to go get all the content. But they're pretty cool. And some of them are so simple.
Most of them are very simple.
Very simple.
But very effective, as long as it's something, that the person wants to do.
What are some of the most popular, maybe, NLP frameworks that they start to teach you at a basic level? Most
everybody needs to learn Circle of Excellence. That's really a good one. Doubt to Belief. My favorite is 6-Step Reframe. There's sort of the core ones, and then there's all sorts of little offshoots that kind of borrow from the concept of use your imagination to make your change. A lot of times, if somebody just said, I'm really nervous about making dinner for my mother-in-law tonight. Okay, fine. What would it be like if you weren't? That's, I don't know if that's considered an NLP technique, but it's certainly using your imagination to step into what that feeling is and make that bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. I'm just really nervous. Well, okay. Well, give me a time when you weren't. Like, when were you super relaxed? Like, think of the beach or, something fun. Watching beach. Netflix on a Saturday. Gardening, whatever, playing with the dog to get in that mood. Okay. So again, you have to imagine it. You get in that mood. Now, take that mood and let's put it in the situation where your mother-in-law's there. What would that be like? What would you see? What would you feel? What would you hear? The VAK piece. Well, that would be a lot better. Yeah. Would you like that better? Oh, yeah. So really, it's nothing brilliant on my part. And the really cool thing about NLP is everything's done in your head. I don't have to dance around, show you stuff, draw shit on paper, nothing. All the work happens in your head. All I do is just tee it up.
Right. So
tee it up.
Would you be open to walking me through something?
Well, if I must. Sure,
I think it'd
of course.
Be cool.
Of course.
Let's try it.
Of course. What's something you want to change or feel differently about?
Let's say
something little.
Okay. What about just anxiety in public speaking?
That's kind of a big one for a lot of people.
Well.
But okay.
Let's do it.
That's one you want.
Yeah.
Tell me how you want to feel.
Confident.
What does confident feel like?
I think it feels easy, where you don't really have to think about it.
Mm-hmm. So natural.
Yeah.
It's effortless. Don't really have to think about it.
James Bond.
Oh. Well, I don't know if James Bond did public speaking.
I mean, just walking around. He's very confident in his suit.
He is. And with women, too.
Yeah. Getting into the Aston Martin.
The martini.
Yeah.
All
Not the
you
killer James
So
Bond.
you want to be the James Bond of public speaking.
There you go. Why not?
Is that all right?
Sounds good.
Okay. So close your eyes for a minute.
Okay.
Take a nice deep breath in for me. Then let it out nice and slow. Nice. Okay. So let's imagine that you can borrow any of James Bond's qualities that you'd like. So you know what that looks like to you and what that feels like. Okay. The tuxedo would be optional. So there you are. And what kind of a public speaking event would you like to be super comfortable with?
Just an in-person event where I have to speak to, let's say, a crowd of 200 people.
200. Okay, so there's 200 people in the audience. So the first thing I want you to understand is because you're speaking to them, by definition, I know that you're the one with the most information about the topic, right?
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. Most of the time, people who get concerned about public speaking are very afraid of being judged, right? Or like they won't be smart enough. But the truth of the matter is you're the expert in the subject matter. That's why you're speaking. So they kind of need what you have. They need to know what you know. They need to see what you see and be able to replicate what you're going to teach them. It's very important. And for most people in the audience, that would be very important for them if they really got what you were teaching, right? Mm-hmm. So think of it more like teaching, first of all.
Okay.
So now there you are in front of the people. So the first thing you want to get control of is physically. So what does it feel like physically if you're in the James Bond mode in front of these people?
Good posture.
Good posture. Yep, he was stand-up kind of guy.
Confident.
Relaxed or tense?
Relaxed.
Does this feel natural or unnatural?
Feels natural.
Very natural. And he was awfully smart. And when he spoke, he was usually giving good advice and good information, wasn't he? So you could feel like that in your head. Do you suppose anybody would be judging him? No. So there he is. He's the expert and he knows it. He's very good at what he does and he knows it. And that's you. So your body is loose and relaxed. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Good posture. Comfortable. What's your breathing like?
Slow.
Slow and deep. Slow and deep and even, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next is where your focus is. I want your focus 100% on the people in the room. In fact, I want you to imagine that standing there in front of them, there's a beautiful light that's shining from the top of your head through your heart out to everybody in the audience. And before you say the first word in your presentation, you're letting this beautiful, lovely light shine through you and go out to all of them. Okay? Because you're connecting with the audience the very first thing you're going to do. Because really, anytime you're talking to anybody, you want to connect, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is how you connect with the whole room. So see yourself standing there. I want you to start at the left side of the room and look slowly all across the room. Take in the faces, take in the people, front, back, middle, side to side, and feel this beautiful energy coming from you through your heart out to them and feel a connection. What do you feel when you imagine that?
It's very meaningful.
Yes, there's a reason you're there, and it's important, and they need you. So does this feeling connect you to them in a really nice way?
Mm-hmm.
It does, doesn't it?
It's a deeper connection.
Yeah, like it's important,
Mm-hmm.
like you have a mission, because you do. So now, are you starting to get a little excited about maybe telling them what they need to know?
Mm-hmm.
Is it kind of getting, we could really do this?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I want you to, in your mind, zoom to the end of the speech when everybody's going, yay! And they're all excited and they got so much good information and they're jazzed and you feel awesome. What's that like? Describe that for me.
Yeah. It's a very high sense of purpose,
Yes.
like fulfillment.
What's the fun factor? Was it fun?
Yeah. The fun factor is just knowing that I helped people in the room.
And you had a good time.
And I had a good time.
Okay,
doing
that's
it.
important. That's what I'm going for. You really liked it. It was fun. You had a good time. So somebody came up to you at the end of the speech and said, Luke, we need you to do this in another 2 weeks. Can you come back? You'd go, oh, yeah. Yeah, I would. Because it'd be great, wouldn't it? Okay. Now, when it's really okay with you to feel that way about public speaking, and you can literally feel like you could step right into that right this minute, that feeling, that James Bond confidence, that wow, I had a good time. Listen, watch their faces at the end when they're all happy and clapping and they got what they wanted and you delivered beautifully and it feels good and that connection is strong and it had meaning and purpose, step into that feeling. And when it's really okay with you to feel like that, anytime you speak to somebody, then and only then you can open your eyes. Until then, they'll stay closed. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. That was quick. Okay, now look up just a little bit. Tell me, what color is your car? The truck?
The truck is brown and white.
Brown and white. How original. And what color is your front door?
It's brown.
We've got a brown theme going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, as you look up slightly, I want you to just check inside, go deep inside, and see if you can recreate any of that old feeling of being tentative or uncomfortable about public speaking. Or if it's different.
It's different.
Different. How is it different?
It's very calm, very easy.
So it's better.
Yeah.
Right. So is it possible to say you don't feel the same way?
Yeah, I don't feel the same way.
So you can't actually recreate the feeling of being tense or anxious about it?
Mm-mm.
Okay. And either way is okay. Either you can't recreate the feeling or it's just better. Either one is just fine. And that's the result you wanted, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. That'll be 35 cents, please.
Or the price of your the amount of your first insurance check. How about that?
$25. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And I was literally shocked. And later on I felt so stupid because what did you expect? It was an insurance check. $25. Yeah.
So
it's pretty bad.
How can someone learn to do this? Obviously there's books about NLP.
There's all kinds of books. There's all kinds of, you can go take, Tony Robbins' course, so you can come to one of our NLP trainings or contact an NLP provider in your area to teach you personally. Any of those would do. There's basic NLP, then there's what they call master practitioner, and then there's trainer. I'm a trainer, but anywhere along the line you can get a lot of what you need.
No, I'm just kidding.
The baby.
So what's your mission or purpose? Why do you keep doing this?
Because I really, really like it. It is literally fun for me. That's probably too self-centered to really admit, but it's true. I really, really like it. I like helping people. I like helping people make changes. I like having meaningful things happen and be the co-creator of significant changes and improvement.
Do you think that your mission or purpose has changed, or were you always connected to this?
I think in some ways it was always that way. It just became more refined. And when I was lucky enough to find Scott and get this level of training, that makes a big difference.
So you decided it would be best for all of us to meet.
I wanted to have a follow-up after the fact, just in case there's questions or anything. And I also want to follow up and see how things went and see who applied what.
Yeah. And what did you think the response was like from each person?
I actually was quite surprised to the better. I mean, everybody always has nice things to say. Nobody ever says, oh, it was terrible, I didn't do anything, it didn't work. But in this particular case, this follow-up was really quite remarkable because people made huge improvements. Like, I think one guy said his sales were up 30%.
30%.
And, somebody else had this major breakthrough in their relationship. And I'm like, oh my God, that's great. It was so exciting. That was just beautiful.
So they went away and they kept using the things.
Yes.
And they're so simple, like you've said so many times. I think one of the guys who is a trader, stock trader, he just needed to reframe certain things because in trading, obviously, especially if you're a day trader, it can be
very
extremely stressful. Yeah. He had told me many times, it's the story you tell yourself. You get in your head, you make the wrong move, and then that cycle keeps happening because now you're in your head because you made a bad trade.
You make a little groove in your head.
Yeah. And you don't operate in that confident James Bond type of way. And so it was cool to hear his story too about how he just changed his story.
Well, see, your unconscious mind will basically believe whatever it is you're thinking. So if your imagination is imagining the worst case scenario or imagining, oh no, it's going to happen again, or whatever, that's going to be as real to you or become as real to you as I can do this. This is going to be great. This will be much better because your imagination can work for, be just as powerful negatively as it is positively. But yeah, he had a great result. Actually, everybody did it at one level or another. And it was just really lovely to see that.
Zach, how about you? So when you went away, some of the things that you implemented or still use, you're still using this and improving. We all are, but what did it look like for you?
Well, for me, I personally did a huge life change, my health-wise. It was something that I didn't think I could actually do because I used to love drinking Coke. It was going out of style. It was going out of business.
That used to be true.
That used to be true. And I literally would tell myself, I will never be able to stop drinking Coke.
There you go.
And I, got some health stuff, and my doctor's like, okay, you need to make changes. We're going to put you on blood pressure medication. I was like, okay, I'm going to make a drastic change. And because I started telling myself I can do this, I haven't drank a Coke in like 2 or 3 months. I'm off of refined sugar, like way healthier, eating cleaner, and I feel so much better. But it was changing that frame of mind, and it was walking through the things that Julie helped set up, and even pursuing some of my own things that I was afraid of making my own content, doing that on the regular instead of when I felt the motivation to do it. So it's been huge.
That's awesome.
You've done a really good job, by the way, Zach. I'm very proud of you. And that's really the point. You can use this about 1.5 million different ways. Just getting people to understand, or to imagine, I should say, it's not understanding, to imagine what could be instead of what they're going through. If your 7-year-old comes in and says, I can't do long division, it's too hard, I'm not smart enough. Well, what if you could do it and it was easy? What would that be like? So sometimes just opening their possibilities with curiosity and engaging their imagination can make a lot of changes. And you can do that with everything and everybody. It's just universally applicable.
Yeah, I think at a basic level, something that I started doing at a young age, and I started to realize a lot more people do this, especially people who achieve certain things, as they saw themselves achieve it years ago.
Oh, yes, that
months
is very
ago.
true. Very true.
And so, you see it and can believe it, and then you can go achieve it. And it's cheesy. It sounds cheesy the way I just said it, but Mike Tyson said he won his fights 6 months before he ever stepped foot in the ring. And you could see that when he stepped foot in the ring, he had that confidence and that 1,000% belief he was going to win the fight because he already won it.
In his head. That's right.
Yeah. So it's very powerful, and there's story after story from, George Washington or, Michael Phelps, or they even teach athletes, see yourself make that big play.
Absolutely. Well, if you look at the Olympics, my favorite example of that is the guy on the back of the high board, because he's back there and he literally does this. And then he poof, and because he's done it 1 million times in his head, and that's how come he can do it off the end of the board.
Yeah.
Because he's seen it and done it in
If
his
I tried
head.
that, I'd break my neck.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't get me in a high dive, but that's okay. But that's how you do it. That's literally how you do it.
Amazing. Well, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
Not by Facebook, as you discovered.
Well, I did.
Well, that was only,
Maybe
I got
that
to
was
tell
God.
you, that was only luck, Luke. It literally could have been 2 months, not 2 days later. Anyway, yeah, phone. Telephone, 281-620-5655 is the number.
All right.
I pick up
if you
my own
get any
phone.
obsessed people who won't stop calling you, don't blame me.
Okay.
Just block their number.
Okay.
All right.
I'll
Thanks,
do it.
Julie.
Thank you for having me. This was great fun.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.